Okay, cool. Looks like we are live. Let's see. Come join the stock market discussion. Perfecto. Okay. All right, cool, man. All right, so we are live. I got Faisal here with me, and we have a private session for our Advantage participants, and they can ask questions at the end. But for now, I wanted to get Faisal in here and explain what the heck has been going on this week in the market. Faisal, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I haven't done my whole weekly analysis, but just today, I guess the overall theme was really surprising. I'm just surprised at how strong the market has been over the past I don't know, like that. Like let me take a look real quick. When did the weakness start to set in? I started selling my long positions, I want to say 2 days ago, and the market's done pretty good since then. It's had a couple of spike downs. There's been a lot of volatility that's been added in the market. Like you've seen a bunch of these reversals that kind of happened towards the close. We got one today where the market was down 200 points, and we reversed to a point where the Nasdaq actually closed up 1.5%, but the Dow I think closed flat. Oh yeah, it closed down 17 points, but that's still a fairly good reversal. Yet even though there was all that bounce back, I started to see the support maintain in the morning, even though I'm really hoping it breaks. I never really got a confirmation signal from any of my indexes or leaders indicating that we were going to see some hard selling. Now, when we got this reversal, I think it was off the news of around the time when Trump was talking about the whole China stuff, and it's just so surprising to see the market rally on something like that. But I mean, it's not really about the news, I guess, because I think we saw the signs in the morning, but just for them to take it up so hard, even the Chinese stocks, I think is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I was really surprised at that. I mean, especially first of all, seeing the Chinese stocks rally, today of all days, didn't make any sense to me. And on top of that, I heard the entire press conference, and until maybe like the last 2 minutes of Trump's conference, I think, the markets were going down. And then after he got done, they just shot up, even when the overall sentiment of the news was really that, hey, China is messing up and we don't really want to deal with this. And they're stealing our information and patents. And we want to, I don't know, maybe consider having US investors reconsider their investments into Chinese companies. So none of it was really overly optimistic for the market. It's not like he was saying that we're going to, decide on more stimulus or we're going to buy more bonds or anything. It seemed like he was actually saying bad news, right?
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, maybe the market was expecting something worse. Maybe, just deeper sanctions or something like that. The market was expecting something and didn't get it, and I think that's why they rallied. But I think to have them rally, like Alibaba rallied 4% today. It goes to show you there's been a couple of times where this China news has come out, or this China tension news has come out, and they've ended up being really good buying opportunities. Like I remember a couple of weeks ago, when things started to really heat up, semis started to take a hit, and I remember telling people that I started to see some signs in semiconductors, some positive signs, when really the news was painting the sector as negative, because semis have a lot of exposure to China. China buys a lot of semi equipment and semi chips for whatever they do, and so they're a big buyer in that. So anytime there is a tension between the U.S. and China, semis usually get hit. But it was strange because towards the bottom, even when the sentiment was really high, these semi stocks were showing stability, and I remember telling people to get into AMAT, and I think that's when I made that really good AMAT trade before its earnings. So it goes to show you that a lot of this stuff, while it may sound bad on hindsight, it ends up being like really good buying opportunities once the day is over.
Yeah, yeah, that does seem like the theme for the stock market as of late, which is every time bad news comes out, market has been going up, whether it's unemployment, whether it's news conferences regarding China, anything really has kind of just been getting bought up. And I think you're right. It's very impressive. I think the one thing that you and I kind of have been talking about the last several days or maybe even weeks is that uh, at some point, the market is going to start at least look to consolidate, either bring down for, maybe come down for a reversal and maybe a retracement, or, at present moment, it just seems like it's just going to keep going up. And then at some point, maybe the floor might be pulled out from under it because there's so much exuberance and optimism from everyone. Is that something that you're kind of getting as well?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. People are looking at the stock market gains as like a validity for what's going on in real life. Like in I feel like some people they'll go out and see the world, and even though like less than a month ago or a couple weeks ago we were in the worst phase of the pandemic, there hasn't been that much time elapsed from the worst, and yet it feels like because the market's going up and the data is coming out a lot better, that the environment itself is just kind of back to normal. And I think it's really weird because it feels optimistic again. There's a lot to be optimistic about, and I think beforehand, when the market was going up, there was a lot to be negative about, and I think that's what really helped propel it up to the higher highs. But as that sentiment changes, that's when I get a little worried. People are still willing to buy here and think if they buy here, it's going to continuously go up because they've missed when it was at the low, and now they see economies reopening. They're thinking, "Hey, did I already miss the ball? Is everything already done?" So people are piling in now that they see that there's a glimpse of hope of things getting back to normal. But the stock market has kind of already priced in a lot of that good news, in my opinion. So I'm waiting for a pullback, but the signs just continuously show me that this market has so many buyers. Like it's not going to be easy to bring down.
Right. Yeah. And that's a good point too. I was gonna comment on your thoughts about the market is pretty much pricing in sort of the recoveries of the economy. And I was looking at some of the data coming out of Texas and some other states of, where was it? Reinfection rates or hospitalizations and deaths that are coming up. Because I think we hit like 108,000 deaths. And I think Texas has reported that they were seeing more and more hospitalizations regarding COVID over the last week and a half. So it's not the same sort of smooth sailing that most people thought when it comes to the economy opening back up and thinking that everything is going to be hunky dory. And add to that the fuel that Trump is adding to the fire, which is this whole China deal, and his sort of war that's going on, or rather war that he's trying to brew with social media. Do you feel like there are multiple events that are developing in terms of the news cycle, the stock market, and maybe even politics that are kind of leading to maybe, I don't know, more distress in the markets? Or do you think that it's just everything will be fine and this is just all, I don't know, charades?
Charades. No, I like in my opinion, I think the when you see all this negativity coming out in China, or related to the Chinese tensions, I think it's mostly noise. I've been saying that since I think like last week or 2 weeks ago or something. I don't think Trump will go through with hard sanctions. I don't think either country wants to do that, especially now when the economic stability is already fragile as it is. I don't really know what it's going to take to bring it down, the market down. It's going to be one of these news, like it's going to be like an unemployment number that for some reason, even though we've ignored all the previous unemployment numbers, for some reason, this one matters and the market's just going to sell off, and you're going to see the headlines, oh, unemployment number bad, that's why the market's going down. When in fact, the unemployment numbers have really been worse than expectations for the past couple of weeks, yet the market has continuously gone up. It's going to be something like that where it's going to make you scratch your head and be like, wait, but I thought that stuff didn't matter before. And then all of a sudden it matters. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for. It could be anything. It could be something related to the China stuff. It could be something related to the India-China tension. It could be anything. Honestly, the market will use it as an excuse to take profit.
Yeah, exactly. One of the big things that we talk about in the community, and I'm sure as well as is that there's a lot of quant-driven movement in the markets, and the news in terms of its positivity or negativity is decided upon how the supply and demand of the market is looking at it, right? It has nothing to do with the impact of the unemployment, the impact of what's going to happen in the economy. It's really that, what is sort of the path of least resistance for the movement up or down in terms of, the market moving. And counter to that, or rather to add on to that, a couple different points that I like to look at when it comes to technicals is there a technical setup for exhaustion to the buy side or the sell side that is going to be a good setup where when the news event finally hits, then the technicals align with the news for why the market is selling or I guess booming. And so this is one thing that I pay attention to. Is this something that you look at when it comes to technicals? Like if things are overbought or oversold, if things are, I don't know, heavily like overpriced or overvalued, or do you look at, technical wedges or patterns, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's exactly, when I say that I see stability in a certain stock or sector or whatever, I'm really looking a lot about on the short-term technical side. So I really think the technicals will confirm the validity of the news. So for instance, if I had seen, 2 weeks ago that the semi stocks ended up breaking down when the China news first came out, I would think, okay, there's actually validity in the news. But because I saw stability towards my support levels, that makes me realize, okay, I think this is more noise. And based on where it is, in the daily chart and in the broader scope of things, I think it's still capable of moving to the upside despite the negativity that's been placed on it in the short term. So yeah, I think you have to kind of use technicals for the same reason. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily quant models that are like deciding whether the support level holds or not. I think they play a role, certainly. But that's definitely what I would say. Like, I was really bullish because the market had not really, I was really bullish for the past month and a half, even though the data was coming out worse than expected, pretty much because the technicals were telling us it wants to keep going up. And even when we get this bad news, the selling is pretty much controlled. The uptrend is remaining. The leaders are still healthy. And so that gives me, validity in the news cycle, at least from my experience. So I agree with how you kind of take it in terms of using technicals to align with events. I think that's really useful.
Yeah. So what are you looking at, in terms of this week? Because we saw the market push up a little bit. I know you entered some shorts. I'm looking at entering more shorts and puts next week. What's some of your reasoning behind that? And exactly what are you shorting?
Yeah, so very recently, I think 2 days ago, I just got this feeling. I said, I've made a lot of really good trades. Let me go ahead and ring the register, take a good amount of profit. I kept a couple longs. I'm really mostly exposed to the healthcare sector at this point because I think they have the most growth and value in terms of relationship to other sectors. Plus, they're not as extended as the tech sector. Otherwise, I would kind of be searching for more deals in there. But I think healthcare is still a great place for innovation, and innovation continues to be bought in this market. So that's on the long side, but I really liquidated a ton of them, and now I'm more short heavy than I think I have been in a good amount of time. Today I added Okta. Oh my God. So they reported a good quarter. everyone expected them to report a good quarter. I was surprised to see the stock go up as much as it did. But I just had this feeling that when you get this much optimism and people are willing to buy it continuously at this price, I think an event like earnings could end up being the perfect ingredient for profit taking. So once everyone has a guideline, once the headlines are out that Okta beat their expectations and they weren't affected by the COVID-19 virus, so therefore this business is awesome. Now that that's out in the sphere and in public news and mainstream news, I think now's the time to short. Like, I don't feel comfortable about it because I really like the technology, but the trader in me is pretty much saying I think this would be a good risk reward. Like, I think the stock could come down easily 20% from here, and it'd be within a solid range for me to get out of. It won't have too many. It just won't be difficult to see my out point from that perspective, because I think it'll be trading within a range. But what else did I enter into? Oh my God, Chewy. God, this stock just crushed me today. So I entered in, I think the stock was up 3.5%. And y'all know how much I don't like Chewy. I don't like the fundamentals. I think as the reopenings come alive, and a lot of these stocks like Chewy and Peloton that have benefited from all the closures, I think they'll start to see their momentum slow down as their main catalyst is pretty much going away. So I like shorting Chewy from that perspective, but technically it gave me a signal. But man, towards the end, it ran up a point on me, and now I'm down like 3% on the short,
Yeah.
like 2.5% or something like that on the short.
Yeah. No, I think Chewy's a great short. Okta, I didn't get to take a chance to look at your Okta short right here, but Chewy, I realize that, if you're looking at Chewy in terms of, let's just say maybe a swing short position, like if you're looking at 2 or 3 months down the road, I don't see why Chewy should be anywhere close to the highs that it is right now. Given what you've told me, how the way Chewy operates, I would say probably companies like Amazon are definitely going to crush companies like Chewy out of the market. I don't see it any other way. So it's like this thing is just sitting up here. It looks like it's begging to get shorted,
Yeah, no, and you got to look at how the stock was doing before this whole COVID-19 crisis. Like, its best day was its IPO. Okay, it had not been doing anything since then, and I just have looked at the fundamentals, and when I compare them to even the lowest growth stocks, I really don't like it. And take that for what you will, but I will continuously be trying to short the stock because I think it's probably like a $20 stock. I think they have a unique business. They're in a nice niche right now, but like you said, their competition can move in at any time, and I think at a certain point they will in the near future.
Yeah. So what are you looking at for the week ahead?
Well, right now, I think for the week ahead, I think the market's going to end up either consolidating here or going down. I mean, I'm mostly betting that it's going down. I still want to remain by that side.
Yeah.
But I think the odds of it going up like it had the past couple weeks, I don't think it's the same high probability. Just based on where the leaders closed and how I saw some of the sectors split, I think you may have sectors like the tech sector and the healthcare sector do really well, but I think on the other side you may have energy and financials continue to struggle a little bit. So you may get that disparity, which ends up creating a flattish market for the week. So I don't know. It's a really tough week to close out because I don't know. Like, this is the first time in about a month and a half that I've really been short. And so I want to keep my bearish bias out of mind because I was so bullish before, and now I just got to be neutral. So I just got to wait and see what the market tells me. I'm sure we'll get some really good clarity Monday. We'll get a pretty big movement either to the upside or downside very early on, probably in the pre-market. Just based on where the market is, I think we're still in that volatility range. All the reversals that have happened previously, I think it just points to more volatility going forward.
Yeah, yeah, that's a fair point. Um, any other current events or news that you were looking at for the last, few days that caught your eye? Because I was looking at some things on my Twitter, and just some things that I find hilarious sometimes, that companies or banks like JP Morgan. So JP Morgan's market guru says he's growing more cautious about stocks because of political risks. And that's, again, hilarious, because I wanted to retweet this, which was, never mind the economic risks. It's like people are not seeing like the reality of what's happening, in the real economy. Yet all they see is like, okay, well, stock market's going up, and the only reason it would maybe come down is because of political risk, but they're not seeing the potential downside risk of what's happening in the real economy. And
Yeah.
then something else which was really interesting was, this chart right here. This is the U.S. personal savings as a percentage of disposable personal income, which, I mean, completely just shot up over the last like month and a half, 2 months. I thought that was fascinating as well. So I'm going to show
Mhm.
you another chart, and then we can discuss this. Consumer spending, but consumer spending is plunging, and then incomes soar on federal payments. This is another point which I find interesting, because the unemployment checks are still going out. People are, making, I guess, okay money when it comes to stimulus from the government. They don't really have that much in terms of going out expenses. They probably don't really have that much in bills because they're just staying at home. So a lot of people, so I've heard, they are in a sense incentivized to stay home. Now, I think my issue with that is, if you really think that people getting a $600 check is making them want to stay home, then you should be really concerned with the grave and stark income inequality that we had pre-COVID, which now all it takes is $600, and plus obviously some other unemployment benefits from the government to make them stay home. You
Yeah,
know,
no, that's a good way to look at it. No, it's true. It makes people realize that, are we getting paid a fair wage? I think that's a great analogy.
yeah. So, what do you think about, first of all, this chart right here, that the parabolic spike in personal savings, and then also what I mentioned about, in terms of the stock market, the way people are looking at it is, well, the only thing that could bring it down is maybe political risks, which already seem to be, like, in my opinion, seem to be on the horizon. I personally think that the China and US relations will possibly escalate. I don't see any other way where Trump is going to get the blame off his hands for the handling or mishandling of coronavirus onto the plate of China. And then also, I think the United States clearly sees China as a rising superpower. So this might be their one way to maybe put them, back in line. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I don't think he's gonna do anything serious. Like I said, no country wants to do anything serious. Like, let's just say China ends up pulling out of the trade deal because of what he's doing or whatever he's done, the sanctions he's put on. I mean, that'll destroy the stock market instantly, because there's so much fragility as it is. There's not much stability at all in the small businesses, and now you're going to affect the supply chains again. And I just think that's the last thing he wants to do. His main barometer has been the stock market, and I think he's going to do whatever it takes to pump it up. Now, I think, on the other hand, now that I think about it, he could do something really brash with China, but on the other hand, he could do something really brash to stimulate the market, like capital gains tax or something, or like capital gains tax holiday or something like that. Something that would really propel people to buy stocks or invest in stocks. And I think his administration has kind of hinted at that. So I wouldn't leave anything out of the table. Like, I think if you are a stock market person, I think Trump is probably the best president in the history of the country for the stock market, because that's just his goal. He wants to make it higher. That's how he views his job performance.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I think the litmus test for Trump and how he measures his success is basically how the stock market does. I'm pretty sure that dude has more alerts set up than you and I do.
Probably every minute he's having a guy. Yeah, someone. The Facebook just crossed 50-day moving average. Do you want to pick up a couple shares? No, I can't. I can't do that.
um, so I was going to mention, one thing about China, which is, I think over the last maybe 2 months at least, and I think since the Trump presidency, I don't think China has done too well to meet Trump or the United States on the table when it comes to the demands. Like, for example, just the other day, I think Trump announced, something about Hong Kong and treating Hong Kong well. I don't know what his tweets were about, but China was basically like, okay, you think you're actually going to do something? Well, just watch me and hold, like hold my beer kind of thing, right? And
Yeah.
and China did exactly that. I mean, I think they're going about their Hong Kong situation as they were going to anyway. And when it comes to the trade war, not that I think China will want to move their piece first, but China is not one country that gets bullied or pushed around, at least not what I've seen. And they're especially not going to get bullied or pushed around by someone like Trump, because I think Xi Jinping is a very tactical person, and the way China sees their 50-year plan, whatever they've drawn out, I don't think that they're really afraid of how America responds to how they're going about their business.
Sure, I think you could make that case. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that for the most part, even the Hong Kong stuff, everyone's gonna go back and forth, but I just think it's pretty much noise in
Yeah.
relation to Hong Kong. I don't think the U.S. will end up doing anything significant to really piss off China, and I don't think China will. China's just gonna you know react to Trump through words, and I think it's just gonna be that type of exchange.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, last point I wanted to ask you about is what did you think about Trump's war on social media? And do you think that that's going to, I wouldn't call it a war, I guess, his scuffle, his beef, however you want to term it lightly. Do you think that that is going to negatively impact some of these companies, or how are you looking at that, if at all?
I actually have not read too much on that story. I know that he was saying like he did something yesterday as far as it affecting Twitter, but I didn't get to read up on it. Could you like just like briefly summarize it for me, please?
Yeah. So okay. So what happened was Trump. I can pull up his Twitter right here. Um, where is it? Right there. So I think one of his tweets was actually flagged by Twitter because he was, as you can see right here, it says, this tweet violated their Twitter rules about glorifying violence.
Oh, what? What the heck?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So,
that's new.
however, Twitter has determined that it may be in the public's best interest to make this tweet, remain accessible. And the tweet was about, these thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty, and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Oh shoot! Oh my god!
I mean, I think he's definitely, has not taken his medicine as of late.
Oh
But
my god! He would rhyme it at the end too. Damn.
I mean, the
Let's
best rapper
kill
alive
him.
for sure.
Oh my god. No, I think when it comes to that, like as far as the extent that like some people feel like social media companies should kind of censor him, I don't know if I totally agree with that.
So,
Um,
well, one caveat to that is, um, here's the thing, right? Social media companies are businesses and companies, they're corporations.
mhm.
They do not have the same sort of rules and regulations that govern them that you and I maybe have from the government standpoint. So they are technically capable of not allowing anyone to conduct business, or if they don't follow their set of rules, you can get effectively kicked off the platform. Now, this isn't about Trump per se. I think he took it personally because obviously Twitter has the same rules for everyone, by the way. It just so happens to be that the umbrella of these rules, will tag someone like Trump in his absurd tweets, because those are the general rules of how the bot is looking out and scanning keywords or looking at maybe inflammation of a conversation regarding a specific topic. So the conversation regarding Twitter and these social media companies is more so about Trump saying that, well, these social media companies keep regulating the conservative speech or conservative or Republican agenda. I don't know exactly what he said, but the point is, I'm thinking that he's trying to make a personal problem of his tweet being flagged into now something bigger, and he might escalate this, and who knows what that's going to do to stock of Twitter or Facebook.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think first of all, I think if you are buying Facebook, Google, or any of these big companies, the biggest issue I have with them is that there seems to be bipartisan support for like regulating these guys, or at least putting some constraint on them, and maybe changing how they do business. So I think that's always going to be a risk when you're dealing with the Googles and the Facebooks, because usually most of these issues don't have bipartisan support. Even if some news comes out, it's not like anything will ever come into law. But this is like a rare industry that does have that pressure and will probably continue to have that pressure for a long time.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think since his tweet, I think both Twitter and Facebook did have somewhat of a pullback, maybe like 2.5%, 3%. Let me see.
Oh, let me check them out real quick.
Well, I forgot exactly what the tweet was. I think it was like somewhere over here. So maybe down about 2.5% or so.
Oh, damn. All right. If Twitter can hold 30, that's pretty good. And then Facebook is already looking fine. It's looking like this may be like a buy the news type of deal, just based on what I'm saying. Yeah, because you would think, okay, if there is more inflammation in this regulation that could end up changing the core ways that these businesses operate, then yeah, I should see more selling in these stocks. But they're actually holding up fairly well, and they're giving me some signals right now. That's very interesting. Maybe if I was a bull, asked me 2 weeks ago, I may end up taking a shot, but not anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean, not to, I guess, discuss politics too much, but that's really the only question I wanted to ask you is how Twitter and Facebook are looking. So it seems like, maybe they might hold up and this might be a buy the dip opportunity for the bulls. But for the most part, we haven't seen the kind of selling ensue that you would think.
Yeah, not at all. Like you've actually seen a good amount of stability in at least Facebook. Twitter, and I mean that makes sense because Facebook's been such a way stronger stock than Twitter. But either way, if you start to see Facebook firming up, there is absolutely no reason Twitter should not be. And I think Twitter has been on my radar for a bit. And if I see the right signs, there may be a long-term buying opportunity from this type of event, if the stock can pull back enough.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Disney?
Oh, I liked Disney 2 weeks ago, and I still like them. I think with the parks reopening, they're gonna figure out a way. I think Disney's management is very smart. Bob Iger's coming back, and they're gonna figure out a way to operate in this new environment, and it kind of will mitigate the second wave risk, because I think this is my own opinion, but even if there is a second wave, I don't think we'll go into a lockdown again. I think we as a society have now focused our attention to living more in a safer aspect in terms of cleanliness and getting the germs off and maintaining social distancing. I think those things will continue for a while, and businesses understand that, and they're going to operate under those guidelines. So Disney, the revenue that has been lost from the parks being closed down, I think they'll come back fine. They won't come back to their high levels, but remember, Disney has extremely strong pricing power. Like I don't know how much a fast pass is today. I think it was like $200 to get a fast pass line into their theme park so that you could ride the rides faster. I was asking a ton of people, like maybe a year ago, whether or not they would pay $400 for a fast pass. They were like, yeah. I was like, would you pay $500? They're like, yeah. I was like, dang. They were like, it's a once in a lifetime experience. And like, you go there and you're willing to kind of do anything. You're willing to pay the high premium for the food that's there. they've really sold on the experience and really made one of the most unique, um, entertaining parks ever. And so that has brand value, and that allows them to increase the price of their tickets, in my opinion, which I think will happen probably within 3 to 6 months or something like that. So I think that'll be fine. And then Disney Plus obviously is growing at a really awesome rate. So I still like Disney. I think it's a bargain here in terms of if you're going to hold on to it for like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point too. I do like Disney. I think for that longer term time horizon. I think with the coronavirus right now, the way it looks, I think it's just so uncertain for the next maybe 6 months or so how life is going to look. I feel like I've already chalked up 2020 as like a with the L. Like that's it. You know, it's a wrap for 2020. Let's look forward to 2021. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
but
what do you
last
think? Do you think do you think we'll be in a more fragile environment in terms of if we do get a second wave, we will end up locking back down and then we'll have to go back to the drawing board and reopen maybe slower and take things more slowly? Or do you think as a society we have said we don't like the lockdowns, we would much rather prefer to operate in more safety measures rather than give up, our normal day-to-day lives?
I, you know, okay, so I can't speak on behalf of the experience of America, but I could tell you one thing. I am extremely happy with the way Colombia handled its exposure to the coronavirus. I'm also extremely happy with the way India handled its dealing with the coronavirus. These two countries, right? And New Zealand, of course. I mean, New Zealand is by far the best case scenario. Okay. South Korea is the best testing scenario, but New Zealand is the best example of a success story of how they came out of the coronavirus, which was, a month and a half, 2 months of hard lockdown, get the virus completely out, and then restart your society and reemerge. I just read a report in Colombia where I think for the last 3 days or 4 days, we haven't, or maybe this entire week, we haven't seen a new death from coronavirus. We
Wow.
went into full lockdown, I think March 14th or 16th or something. I don't think America ever really went into a lockdown except for major cities. I still remember looking at the flight data, whether it was in early April, late April, early May, and you could see hundreds and thousands of flights moving across the entire country. Now, I understand the balance that you need to find between saving your economy and saving people, right? But here effectively there's no choice. I mean, America, there's a reason why America leads the world in deaths right now. It's 108,000 people, right? So it's already reflecting that America's poor mishandling of the coronavirus. Now, you keep mishandling that, then the deaths are for sure going to go up. I mean, there's no question about how much risk mitigation that you'll have. I think the virus itself is just something that most scientists or doctors have not come across, where they realize, well, it doesn't matter if you have the best protective gear and mask. In some way, somehow, they say that an average person touches their face like 7 times a day or 17 times a day or something like that, right? And so you don't even know sometimes where the virus might get into your system, even doing the smallest menial tasks. Even when you may have had your mask on, you may have had your hand sanitizer or washing your hands or whatever. I think the only best measure that I've seen is full out lockdown and getting people into their homes to make sure that there's no possible way of spreading this further. Now, to answer your question, I think the second wave, probably given historical context of other pandemics, will possibly be worse, if not the same. I don't think it will be, less vicious. So that's how I'm seeing it.
I mean, are you like you got to kind of factor in the fact like we're all social distancing too, and even if a second wave comes, hopefully more people will be better prepared versus when the virus hit come March. So I think that could also prove to mitigate the loss in terms of if a second wave does come, how bad it'll be.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's quite possible. I feel like we've been talking about social distancing since maybe early April. Early April, I think the deaths were around 30,000. We added about 70,000 more deaths since then, or well, technically 78,000. So I don't know if the argument about just social distancing is valid anymore,
Hmm.
right? It doesn't make
Okay.
sense. If America was the sort of example of, well, here's a country that kept its economy alive and did social distancing to reduce the deaths, well, then why is it that America is number one in infections and deaths versus a country, I mean, even a country like India? China is probably not the best example because we don't know the accuracy of their numbers, but with a billion point two and a half people, or 1.25 billion people in India, the infections and the deaths are way lower.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It is still, a one day at a time, one week at a time example. But given what the other doctors or, medical experts are saying, either the second wave is going to be just as bad, if not worse. And this isn't to scare people. It's just, that's reality. I mean, you might as well prepare for the worst of the reality, right? Rather than, lowballing and thinking that, all right, well, it's not going to be as bad, and let's just get out there and have, your normal day as you will.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it's kind of crazy here because I went out just yesterday a ton, and I'm going to Chipotle, and I'm the only dude in there with a mask, and there's like 20 people there.
Yeah.
Not the employees are wearing masks, but like every of the other customers are barefaced, I guess. But it's crazy how things have kind of looked back to normal, at least from Houston.
Yeah.
It really does have this normalcy feel. It doesn't feel like we're in a pandemic, even though I think there's still tons of cities that are under restrictive rules or something like that.
Yeah. Well, last thing I want to mention to the viewers that are watching, again, we have a 50% discount that we're doing for our membership because of our rebranding that we're going through. So this is only valid for 1 month subscriptions. So if you want to hear more conversations from Faisal and myself, if you want to see equities updates, crypto updates, Forex updates, make sure you come join, message me. And we can get you started on the 50% off. And then finally, Faisal, the last question I want to ask you is, what are you looking for your top short or long for next week? Um, and what is one stock that you think, as per your long terms, is still looking good by the picks that you've put out? Like, I think you wrote, what was it, the stock of the day? Maybe this one right here.
Let me see.
Uh, Avalara, right?
Oh
One of
yeah.
the top growth stocks. Like, I wanted to hear just a little bit more from you. So, top your best short and long for next week, and then anything about one of these stocks that you put out in the stock of the day.
Okay. All right. So y'all are catching me right after I trade the market. So I may also give some other picks come Sunday's video, but just off the top of my head, I really think that long of the day, I really like GPN. Avalara was good, but if you take a look at it, when I wrote the excerpt or whatever, the stock had gone down 7%, and I said, because it's gone down 7%, I think it has a chance to consolidate here and form a nice base, and I think it could be a great entry point. The problem was the very next day it went back up 7%, so it didn't give you a chance to get in, I guess. What's that stock trading? What did it do today? I didn't keep an eye on it.
Let's check it out. Avalara,
Ah,
107.6.
damn, it's back over 100.
Wow,
Oh
there's
my
insane
god.
buying that came in.
Yeah, I mean, when I wrote it, that's when it first fell down, or the second day it fell down, and then it just reversed so hard. But I was really excited about the stock. I was like, oh, I finally get to jump in. It's a really fundamentally great company. They sounded great on the earnings report, um, and they're growing fast as heck. So I was looking forward to getting in, but damn, I guess I got to wait a little bit longer. But I think GPN and some of the more fintech names, I think they're going to have a good week if the market goes up. I think they're still trading a little bit, um, they're kind of undervalued in my opinion relative to where other stocks are with similar growth rates and earnings estimates and stuff like that. I think this stock deserves to be a little bit higher. Same with FISV, Fiserv. I think that's another fintech stock that deserves to be higher, that just has not done that well. So I'm kind of paying attention to that sector. I also really like Sony. They said yesterday or 2 days ago that they were going to release the specs on the PS5 sometime in early June. And so I think that could be a pretty nice catalyst for the stock to rally before that event. And it was showing me some really good technical signs yesterday or 2 days ago. It popped. And so then I was just waiting to get back in at some point. And I thought about taking a shot today, but I was just going full short. But if the market starts to show me some really good stuff, I'll probably end up loosening some of my shorts and adding a stock like Sony or GPN. And
Okay.
then let me see a short of the week. Like I know this is probably risky to say, but I really want to short the software stocks. Like I've been really big fans of them. I've traded them a lot as they've gone up to just super expensive premiums. But I think it's coming time to an end. Like I think very soon.
Did you say semis or software?
Software.
What's a software ETF or a specific stock?
SKYY is a software ETF. It has some software and data center stocks and stuff like that. It's done awesome. Well, a stock like I want to short a Coop. Like I want to short the leaders that have done really well. A Coop or Okta. That's why I got into Okta. I just think well, right when the news gets good, and I think with these earnings report, everyone's saying, "Oh shoot, they weren't affected by the coronavirus." Well, no shit, because their stock didn't even reflect that at all. Their stock was going up consistently as the virus was hitting. So I think as the news finally gets finalized, that's when you got to ring the register. And so Okta was a very big leader for me, and I think it'll eventually end up leading other software stocks down. I was really surprised to see Salesforce not lead the sector, but I think I like volatility, so I'm willing to take a shot. I'm hoping these dudes take a break next week, but I have some really tight stops on Okta, so I'm ready to say that I'm wrong, but I think the risk reward here is very favorable.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you when it comes to risk to reward. Um, just to add to that, I've told you before that I think in some ways Bitcoin being the high risk asset that it is, so far to me, it still looks like it's just topping off over here. And I was seeing some more selling come in right at the top, which typically is often denoted for Bitcoin like, all right, well, this is pretty much it. There's a lot of FOMO, that's going into the market, but the market's not really budging. It seems like the buyers are really buying into what the sellers are really selling, and the market's just not budging. So
Yeah.
to round that up with equities, it just seems like if high risk assets like Bitcoin, whenever they start rolling over, you might start seeing, maybe tech stocks or maybe some of these overvalued stocks start to roll over, and then who knows, that might be our next leg down.
Yeah, and I think these high growth players will be some of the first ones to go down and probably lead the market during this pullback cycle. I think if it's not clear if the market coming down even today is still part of a broader pullback, I think we're still in contention to go up or down. But if it is, then I guess you could say that the financials and energy probably let us down. But as soon as high growth starts to sell off, that's when I think I'll lose faith. I think high growth and semiconductors, when they both start to sell off, I'll really lose faith in the market.
Yeah. Okay. Well, perfect, man. Again, I just wanted to mention to our viewers right now, you can join the Advantage membership for $50 versus the previous 50% discount for the month of June. So make sure you guys come join or message me if you're interested. All right. Thank you so much, Faisal. Look forward to doing this again Sunday for our equities wrap up. And until then, I'll catch up with y'all Monday. All right.
Peace.
All right. Cheers.